What's up, everybody, and welcome back to the YouTube channel. Today it's Sunday, of course, and we'll be doing our Sunday market breakdown. Now, without wasting any time and further ado, let's get down to it. Do not forget to like and subscribe, of course. And starting off, obviously, with DXY, we're going to do something a little bit weird today, but it's just to get the whole entire context of what's actually happening and how we're about to break down everything this week. So we're going to start on the monthly instead of the weekly and just looking directly from the monthly just to sort of like get the whole entire idea, looking into the future on DXY. We are clearly within this 1 2 3 phase over here, okay, and from just looking at it we can sort of like expect price to fill this entire gap over here, as it's more in the sense of that price broke out and broke back into structure, gave us the confirmation move that okay, we are back within that sort of range play, and now we're about to fill the whole entire move. So this is why we actually came to the monthly time frame. We came to collect this confluence within our favor before we move down to the lower time frames, right? And on the other side, if you do quite follow the Falcon YouTube channel a lot, there was this other tip that Mike gave up, this 1% tweak, where you have to pay attention what happens to price after 3 consecutive engulfing candles. Okay, they have to be consecutive. So what I mean is that okay, let me finish on what actually the whole idea is, of which after 3 consecutive engulfing candles you should expect slightly larger corrections or steeper moves, right? And now building onto that, if we just look at it from here, straight from here, you can see we had 1 2 3 consecutive, well, engulfing, you can call them engulfing candles, and we had that slightly deeper correction, which is the current one that we're looking at, and it started from here, okay? And it's also seen on the daily, as we discussed from the previous SMB, where we had 3 consecutive ones over there and there was a steeper correction, right? So now we can just pass through the weekly before we go down, because we have to see what the weekly did in the previous week in terms of understanding what we should expect the next week. Okay, the closes are important. So as you can see, we're still slightly playing with this area, within this area over here at the bottom of the whole entire corrective structure within our phase run, right, where we can sort of like expect price to continue moving down. Right now, obviously, I believe, wait, let me see, yeah, I think we are done on the weekly. There's really nothing much more to observe and collect from here, and we can move down to the daily to collect the rest of the data, of course, where we're gonna end up looking into these two similar price action buildups, of which they come from two different time periods, but they're both on DXY. One is actually currently, which is the current price action that we're looking at, and the other one is from this point in time over here. So you'll see how similar those structures are within, or with how they built up, and maybe we can sort of like build some sort of idea in what to expect on the next move, which is what we're looking at based on that, right? So I believe we can quickly dive down to the 4 hour. If there's literally not much more to get from here, besides the fact that we are sort of within this now currently new building range over here, okay? So let me just bring back the drawings that I already had on, because that's what we're going to use to sort of build up everything, okay? As you know, we don't normally do analysis in these type of videos. We rather break down what we drew and how we built on that and came to that conclusion. So now, coming back to this, right, this over here, okay, if you see this, I believe comes directly from here, right? It's this direct price action that's currently happening within here, and this over here is from this price action and time. Okay, so looking at what happened from there, we can sort of like maybe build an idea into what we should expect on the current price action that we have. As you can see, they are a lot similar in a sense. We initially had like sort of a value area that we expected price to fill, but it never came towards it, and it broke out of the structure that we're looking at, that range, and we sort of had this play below it at a value area over here, same thing as the one that we have on the current structure, which is this one but below us. Okay, call it an inflection point, but it's a value area in terms of looking at it, that you be exiting any positions that have been taken within this run, right? So as you can see from here, this is the bottom, right, of this the current structure that we are going to be looking at in terms of this reference. This is the peak. Okay, let me just do it like this, as you can see, and build onto that, where price did eventually tap into that over here and decided to trickle over here, where we eventually decided to fill this at this point in time. If I can just show it to you by putting this ray line over here, the 1 2 3 touch is not really there if you look at it, so call it an override, where you would have had your first touch over here, second touch, this is the override playing within the structure, right? So just building with that, we can now look at the current price data that we have, and sort of like have an idea what price might do, and that's what we are actually anticipating now. So moving down to the 1 hour and building up everything before we move on to our selected pairs for the week. This is what we have on DXY, where we are actually expecting price to fill the bottom first before maybe we can come tap into that, where we do have also access to actually continue moving to the downside, building up with everything from the weekly, right? But if otherwise this builds up enough volume to actually keep on moving to the upside like it did on the previous example that we are relating with, it wouldn't be a surprise to us, right? But now let's focus on the current structure and see what we actually have, in a sense that, okay, price tapped into this area over here, gave us the clear push, and now we're within this correction, and we're expecting it to be the completion of this whole entire move over into here, right? Completing this double bottom and possibly giving us some buy side scenarios over there, right? And the other thing that we can add on to that is the 1 2 3 drive inception, okay, which we are building up into it now. I personally don't prefer having a trend line on this one now, because it's within this playing, it's not exactly where it should be, and we know naturally this is obviously going to be broken, so it's just sort of like a distraction that shouldn't be there, right? So getting that out of the way, that's what we actually have, right? But at the same time, we're not going to ignore the fact, or well, the possibility, right, that price can actually just keep on continue moving up from here, right, coming to fill this first, and actually we do actually get the sales that we are anticipating if this does actually play out, in a sense that, okay, right, we do have like our sharp move over here where price is actually gravitating towards, right? We had the first near miss to it, actually it is the only near miss, it's a gap towards the level, so I don't think we have a 1 2 3 drive inception, or what we do where we left the footprint, we try to, we actually pull back the first time, but we don't actually come to the footprint. We then we have the second pullback again, which breaks the first one over there, the back, and eventually we're gonna have the one that actually breaks through everything here and moves price down, right? So that's everything that we can see currently on DXY, given the price data that we have, and I believe we do have the access to move to our pairs, right? So let me just move this block over here to show that, well, this is actually the whole entire area of focus, and here we go. So now looking at EU, looking at EU, we are simply gonna obviously dive back to the weekly, and as you can see, price is playing above this, call it an inflection point, and we are looking for price to fill into this area over here. Any trades that will be playing within this region we will probably likely try to see what price is going to do when we get here. Either it's going to try to develop larger corrections to accommodate the impulse, or it's simply going to break through and search other areas, which this is the next one in sight. So with that out of the way, I believe we can dive down to the daily. And moving down to the daily, of course, as you can see, if I remove the drawings that we're going to be working with on the 4 hour and lower time frames, it's the same idea that we had on DXY, that we are playing within a new range. Okay, this is a fresh new range where we have that impulsive phase over there. This is obviously your corrective second phase, and we're expecting it to be a continuation to come and fill that area over there, right? So now, bringing everything that we are going to need, we can quickly dive down to the 4 hour. And on the 4 hour, similarly to DXY, as anticipated and expected, of course, since these are the direct inverse correlations of each other. Let me just get rid of this because it's for the next upcoming trade. It will be built on that. Let me dive down to the 1 hour so you can clearly see this sort of forecasting. As you can see, it was done on the 1 hour, and we can now begin with our breakdown, where it's still the same thing, just in the opposite direction from DXY, where we had the sharper move over here. Price tapped into it, gave a push away, and now we have this sort of like larger correction relative this impulse forming to move and complete price to the upside with this 1 2 3 over there within our presence, right? So the other thing that we can check is if this is, well, it's still playing within the 50% of the impulse, not slightly away from it, so it's not that invalidated as of now. Although what also EU is opening a window to is that it might tap into that and it actually goes down first, but this is actually what we're looking at now. And also adding to what we saw from DSY with another larger 1 2 3 drive inception, where that will be the first touch, that will be the second, and we're anticipating the third to be somewhere within these regions to come do this, and now we actually get the move to the upside. This would have just came back to form a larger correction to actually, accommodate this impulse from the downside, as we mentioned, from the larger time frames. So that's that with EU, and we can quickly rush to USD CHF. So we have enough time to deal with the last pair, which is Aussie dollar CAD. So now looking at dollar Swiss on the weekly, we can clearly see that, of course, price is playing below these regions over here. Over here we are playing below that clearly. We obviously close aggressively below that, and the weekly from the previous week is just like a call it yeah, it's a doji. It's not really a pin, but it's a doji. So now going down to the daily, as that's all we can collect from the weekly, that doji now sums up into a correction, okay, to actually continue moving to the downside, as we have cleared that we are playing below this, and we clearly broke out, giving confirmations for sell side plays, which will be this, right? And this also makes sense relative to XY. We are actually expecting it to also continue to the downside, if otherwise it doesn't do what it did relative what we looked at from the other price action comparing to the current price action. So given that, we can quickly dive down to the 4 hour, and looking at the 4 hour, this is the very area within our sights. These are just inflection points which might get you involved too early within the move, but all in all, this is the area that you should be looking at to actually start looking at moves to the downside, right? And now, bringing that other tool that I removed while I was on EU, which was like the pip range measurement tool. The implication behind it was simply checking, okay, if this is gonna be like sort of like 100 pip run, then EU should relatively do something similar, right? If this, because looking at this from that point, the current price action, we're priced close to here, it's about 65 pip ish, slightly less than what USD CHF is going to do, and this is relatively, call it 128, slightly larger, but slightly larger than what USD CHF is going to do. But in that case, we can sort of like have an idea that this might not hold, and it price might actually just move all the way down into here to accommodate what USD CHF has to do and move to the upside, right? So with that out of the way, you understand why I actually initially had this as we started with our video today. And of course, you'll wait for price to come into that area, push down, give you your continuations if you missed the risk entry at the top, and you get to exploit that move to the downside, right? So we can move down to the last pair with the last 4 minutes that we have, and quickly run into the weekly. On the weekly, what we can clearly see from USD CAD is that we are playing within this larger reversal pattern over here, right? Where we clearly have our 1, 2, 3 completed, and the confirmation candle has been given, and we're anticipating to play price all the way up into these regions over here, with a point A over here to B play into that area. Okay, so with that out of the way, let me also mark the peak of our run, where we might likely want to stop looking at buy size and expect something quite different, right? So moving down to the daily, on the daily, we can now clearly see that price has confirmed that we are now within buy side scenarios after the sell sides have been completed. There's a clear distinguishable impulse over there, breaking back into structure, which has been met with that 1, 2, 3 touch over there, right? So we can also move down to the 4-hour, I believe, as this is still too early within development. The only thing that we can pick up from here, let's say, is that okay, we have this bottom over here if we're looking for continuations to move up, right? So now we can move to the 4-hour, and on the 4-hour, what we can clearly see now is that, right, to add more onto the fact that we are now looking at the buy sides. Previously, before everything here happened, you would have probably anticipated price to move down from here as sort of a continuation of this whole entire move to the downside. But the failure of that now is the confirmation that we are now within the other direction of the run, which is the buy size, of where we can see what price did. It did give you a message that this no longer holds value in terms of moving down by forming this two touch to push the upside, of which it was a position of its own which you could have taken, given that you understood everything that we have already covered from the higher time frames down to where we are now. So now the forecast with this is very basic and simple. We have a clear distinguishable impulse now, and this is the continuation to move to the upside, right? So moving down to the 4-hour, the 1-hour, I believe now I can even get rid of this sort of like back end anticipation over here, where we can now actually look at that as like the inflection point where we might want to liquidate positions that we are in from here before anything slightly larger or deeper retraces happen, right? So now moving down to the 1-hour, to conclude everything, as we have 1 minute exactly on time, we can just filter everything and make things clear in a sense that okay, we had this sort of like a volume building over here, we gapped towards it, and now we're expecting price to fill before we move to the upside. Very basic stuff. So just to conclude that, we can add in our path tool, and yeah, that's about it, guys. So yeah, as I always say, I hope you find this helpful within your trading journey as a Falcon student. And yeah, guys, I'll see you on the next one. Yeah, shout out.